Hello, and thank you for joining me for this bite-sized episode of the Life Lessons podcast with me, Simon Mundie, in which we revisit one nugget from one of my previous conversations and have a closer look. Obviously, Gary Lineker has been in the news recently, more than usual, after a social media fracas that led him to miss a week of presenting Match of the Day and briefly dominated the news headlines. Well, as we now know, that situation was sorted, and Gary was quickly back alongside his chums on the MOTD sofa, looking as unruffled as ever. Being centre of the media glare as he was didn't seem to knock Gary off his stride too much. And when you hear about his career playing football, you can understand why. As he says, you need serious resilience to get to the very top of the game, as he did. And so, a social media storm is easy to cope with after that. So here's a bit of my chat with Gary, starting with him recalling the managers who had a big impact on him, particularly the fearsome Leicester boss, Jock Wallace.
I didn't probably learn too much in terms of technical ability, tactical side of things. It was very basic, Jock, old school, get it forward. And but he was huge man. I don't know what he must have been, 6'3", 6'4", wide as a door, you know. Very strong, growling Scottish accent, and I was terrified of him. I mean, the first time I ever kind of came across him, he just got the job, and we had a reserve game the next night, and I was in the reserves at the time. I was 18 by then, 17, and I was at half time in the dressing room, sat there. In he comes, it's the new manager, and he's like massive, and he's growling, and he's swearing, and he's cursing, and he's looking at me. And then he marched over, he pinned me against the dressing room door, he's got me by the scruff of the neck, and he's going, "You English, this and that, you like the..." I couldn't understand most of it, except for the swear words. And I, I wouldn't have minded, but we were 2-0 up and I'd scored both goals. But and it was, I was terrified, and I honestly thought I was in trouble. That's like my career. And then at the end of he told me my office next morning. Then I thought, crikey, he's going to end it. That's it. I'm done. And then I remember it was like sitting outside the headmaster's office and waiting to be summoned in. Eventually I was, and he sat me down and he said, "Hey son, you were magnificent last night." And I've gone, I beg your pardon? Sorry? He said, "I just need to keep your feet on the ground, and I just did certain things." And I thought, "Oh, thank you very much." I'd not slept all night thinking my career was over. But it was messages, and and he made me learn to live properly, not to abuse myself. All sorts of things about attitude and effort and commitment, and of which was part of, instilled into me largely by him. And obviously you've got to have that kind of thing inside yourself anyway, but
we do have to have it internally, but you need those kind of teachers along the way, starting with your parents and then these other people, and he clearly had a big impact.
Very much so, and I was very lucky with the people that I had, and the guy after him, Gordon Milne, that came in when Jock lost his job, was a different personality, a different character, but more into the technical aspects and the tactical aspects of the game. So each of these helped my education growing. I was really lucky with the people, the important people in my life, right from my parents to my coaches to my managers. Howard Kendall, Bobby Robson as an England manager. Yeah. All these things. It could have gone the other way if I'd have been badly influenced perhaps by someone in an early part of my career, because as I said, I wasn't obviously outstanding as a young player. I wasn't.
Yeah. The thing that struck me about Jock and other managers of that ilk, someone like Sir Alex Ferguson, is the kind of the tough love thing, which is what he did with you. And the one side is like, I think Mike Brearley, I interviewed, put it summed up quite nicely. It's like comfort the troubled and trouble the comfortable. And it sounds like what he was doing to you. On the one side, it's like, right, don't rest on your laurels. But on the other side, I'm here if you kind of need me. And Sir Alex Ferguson seemed to have a bit of that. And there seems to be less prevalent managers like that these days. A, do you think that's right? And B, do you think that might contribute towards players perhaps being less resilient than they were before?
I think there's definitely been a shift away from that type of manager, the Fergusons, the Jock Wallaces, people, like that. as probably as footballers have become more powerful, more wealthy, probably need a little bit more affection but I think most of us generally respond better to an arm around the shoulder than we do to a kick up the arse. But it's about getting the right sort of balance. But I think there's definitely a little bit of a shift, and I suppose that will affect the resilience of certain players. But if you're going to go right to the top in football, you're going to have to be damn resilient anyway, because even if it doesn't come from the manager, like social media these days, you've got to be able to take criticism to be a footballer. It's like people say now, you get loads of stick sometimes on Twitter from people that don't agree with your views and stuff. It doesn't compare to being a footballer.
No,
I mean you've got to be able to handle. You've got to be tough, really, really tough to be a footballer. And one or two players that aren't as tough as you need to be, they won't quite make it all the way to the top. It's just one of those things that you've got to have, because, as we've talked before, football matters. It matters too much. For some people, it's the most important thing in their lives. So you have got to be able to handle criticism. Now, whether it be the management styles will have changed slightly, and there'll be a bit more arm around the shoulder. And you can see now managers, it's all like they're all friendly. You see Gareth Southgate with these players, and they're all friendly. And you see Brendan Rodgers at Leicester now, and they're all like having little group hugs. And that never happened. Never the case in mine. Even with really affable people like that I work with the Howard Kendall and Terry Venables and Bobby Robson. It wasn't quite like that. There was still a him and us. Whereas now it's more of a kind of universal us. Look at Klopp and then Guardiola's on the pitch and he with these players. I know, but so it's different. It's different, and things do change.
Of course. And you talk about having that kind of water off a duck's mentality, and you spoke about it actually and how that helped with your broadcasting career. We'll talk about that in a second. But I found it very interesting where you wrote about how you're just never nervous. And so, for example, like in a penalty shootout, the most high pressure moment in football, and the way you framed it to yourself, which was, right, this is an opportunity to show off.
Show off,
rather than an opportunity to miss. Now, to what degree is that wired, and to what degree is that? Do you think you can choose that?
I don't think you can choose it. I think you're either like that or you're not. I mean, I spoke to other players that taken pen like Shearer and Michael Owen, and they said they were nervous wrecks taking them. So we're all different, but nerves are not a thing I feel. I've never felt it. Never felt it. And the bigger the game, the more excited I was, and the bigger the opportunity. I struggled in like pre-season friendlies or testimonial games, and that just
because they didn't matter.
Because they didn't matter. But you get World Cups and stuff where it really counts. Sometimes it went well and sometimes it didn't. That's football. But you talk about nerves. I was honestly, genuinely. I'm not. It's not a boast. It's just a fact. I didn't feel that kind of nervous, like butterfly thing in my stomach, even in a penalty shootout. I genuinely thought, this is a unique opportunity where most human beings will never have this opportunity in life to show what they're made of. And it was like, come on, bring it on.
Thank you for listening to this bite-sized episode of the Life Lessons podcast. If you could please share this episode on social media or with someone who you think might benefit, I'd be immensely grateful. Until next time, have a great week.